This ice wall is retarded. Admiral Byrd was murdered for speaking out on the Germans and saucers working with the reptilians in Antarctica. Bad thing was, the US military didn't help him do his job. They choose greed and contractors over oaths. Before you dive into the Hollow Earth topic, let someone know for your own safety, just in case you need to be guided back to reality. It all began with the mythological subterranean underworlds, the classics, Hell, Hades, Sheol. Then Edmund Halley came along in the 1600s, who thought the Earth might be a series of concentric spheres. He's very smart, just very wrong. Fast forward to the 1800s, and Captain John Cleve Sims Jr. thinks the same thing, except in his version, the Earth has holes at its poles. That was part one, but also in the 1800s, other books are written, some fiction, some claiming to be fact. The idea is kept alive. Then in the first half of the 20th century, a few more books are written. Phantom of the Poles, A Journey to the Earth's Interior, and so on. It's like a zombie limping through time, infecting people, avoiding decapitation. Then we reach Admiral Richard Evelyn Byrd, who is central to the Hollow Earth revival in the latter half of the 20th century. Though not at his request, he was dragged in posthumously. After this is when it really spread, and the narrative becomes a lot harder to follow. But let's look at Admiral Byrd first. Birdman. Admiral Byrd clearly stated, and mind you, he is an admiral, he stated that there was saucer-like craft that had advanced maneuverability and were dancing around his aircraft like it wasn't moving. And there was a giant crater that went into the Earth that was big enough to fly a plane into. That's Admiral Byrd speaking publicly before they shut him down. Richard Byrd, naval aviator and explorer famous for his expeditions to the poles between 1928 and 1956, discovered an opening in the Earth in Antarctica during Operation High Jump in February 1947 that contained a glowing city with an advanced race of beings. This is where flying saucers come from and where some of the Nazis fled to after the war. Despite being named frequently in books, videos, and shows on the topic, I couldn't find any direct evidence that Byrd believed in or knew anything about the Hollow Earth. The biggest piece of evidence for advocates of this narrative is the alleged finding of Byrd's missing diary by his son Richard Byrd III. This diary is 37 pages. All the Hollow Earth websites and videos pretty much quote it verbatim.
Flight log, Base Camp, Arctic, February 19th, 1947. 0600 hours. All preparations are complete for flight north, and we are airborne with full fuel tanks at 0610 hours.
Admiral Byrd died in 1957, and this missing secret diary wasn't published until 1990, and it reads like some 15-year-old kid's creative writing project. The great door slides noiselessly open, and I am beckoned to enter. One of my hosts speaks. Have no fear, Admiral. You are to have an audience with the Master. I step inside, and my eyes adjust to the beautiful coloration that seems to be filling the room completely. Then I begin to see my surroundings. What greeted my eyes is the most beautiful sight of my entire existence. It is in fact too beautiful and wondrous to describe. It is exquisite and delicate. I do not think there exists a human term that can describe it in any detail with justice. My thoughts are interrupted in a cordial manner by a warm, rich voice of melodious quality. I bid you welcome to our domain, Admiral. C-. It's not great. So, while conducting a flight over the South Pole, Byrd's plane is magically commandeered by swastika-emblazoned flying saucers called flugel rods, and is forced to land in a place that's apparently so beautiful no physical description is given whatsoever. He meets a benevolent man named the Master, who warns humanity is on a collision course with destruction, atomic bombs, and whatnot, self-destruction, and we need to change lest we destroy the world. Which would obviously be an odd lecture to get from someone who's consorting with Nazis. Agartha isn't a rumor. Admiral Byrd actually wrote about it in his published journal of his voyage. Very interesting how a decorated officer would lie about discovering a civilization living in what is known as Agartha, or the Inner Earth. Obviously, Admiral Byrd didn't write this, and there's no chain of custody you can follow that's going to lead you to him in this diary. Supposedly, it's his son that found the diary and then had it published, but I've yet to find evidence of that. So, when and where did the template for this tale originally come from? Admiral Byrd, Antarctica, Hollow Earth, Nazi UFOs. Wikipedia led me to Dr. Raymond Bernard. In 1964, he gives us the Hollow Earth, the greatest discovery in history. The true significance of Admiral Byrd's great discoveries was hushed up soon after he sent his radio report from his plane. I'd like to see that land beyond the pole. That area beyond the pole is the center of the great unknown. For while Columbus discovered a new continent, Byrd discovered a new world with a land area equal to or greater than the entire land surface of the Earth. Admiral Byrd's discovery is today a leading international top secret, and it has been so since it was first made in 1947. The reason for keeping this a secret, according to Bernard, is that if the Soviets were to find out, they would mount their own expedition to go and claim this new territory. This early chapter is rounded out by saying, "It is hoped that a serious expedition will be made by a neutralist, peace-loving nation like Brazil into this new world beyond the poles and establish contact with the advanced civilization that exists there, whose flying saucers are evidence of their superiority over us in scientific development." But this book led me to two other people, F. Amedeo Giannini, who published an earlier book in 1959, Worlds Beyond the Poles. He thinks that all the planets are connected via land bridges, Mars, Earth, Venus. You can walk there. But he doesn't actually connect Byrd with flying saucers, just Byrd and the land beyond the poles. And Raymond or Ray Palmer, which, let me give you a quick snapshot of this guy. As editor for a science fiction magazine in 1947 called Amazing Stories, he states that the author of some of the stories in their June publication, a man named Richard Shaver, who claimed some of the descriptions in his stories of underground caverns and advanced civilizations, that those were true. Ray Palmer said that these stories had validity. So now fast forward to 1959, and Ray Palmer is a publisher of his own magazine, Flying Saucer. In it, he publishes a 14-page article titled Saucers from Earth. In this article, Admiral Byrd, UFOs, the Antarctic, and the Hollow Earth are linked. Nazis aren't specifically mentioned in the 1959 Flying Saucers article, but back in Raymond Bernard's 1964 book, The Hollow Earth, on page 198, he mentions that many of the pilots of these UFOs speak German. Germans don't equate to Nazis, but we are getting closer. The origin of Nazi UFOs seems to come from people like Ernst Zundel, an actual Nazi sympathizer who published Secret Nazi Polar Expeditions under the pseudonym Christoph Friedrich in 1976. It is ironic that some of our best information about the secret Nazi polar expeditions comes from an unimpeachable source, a secret leak at the highest level of the National Socialist government, Adolf Hitler. He reveals the fact that the Germans have produced from whaleskin a fiber which can be woven into seamless garments of unterrible toughness, which are almost bulletproof. These garments are light gray in color with an almost metallic texture. Here the reader may be reminded that flying saucer occupants have been reported in sightings around the world as wearing snug-fitting spacesuits similar to, if not identical to, those described by the Fuhrer. Here Zundel is trying to talk about the superior Nazi technology. Obviously, Nazi Germany was up to something big, but what? Was there a shortcut from the Arctic to Antarctica? Did the Nazi expeditions discover a more direct way to Antarctica via Greenland, Spitsbergen, or the North Pole? Was this the reason for the Nazis' lavish expenditure of men and material in these regions before and during World War II? Did the Allies find out what the Nazis had discovered? Was this the reason for Admiral Byrd's massive military invasion of Antarctica in 1947? The Chilean newspaper El Mercurio quoted Admiral Byrd as saying that he felt it imperative for the U.S. and its allies to ring both the Arctic and Antarctica with radar networks, and to institute immediate defensive measures against attack from these regions. Only time will tell us what really is up there or down there, or should we say, in there. This narrative isn't wrong because Zundel is a Nazi sympathizer, and Nazi sympathizers are bad people, therefore anything they think and say must be wrong. It's wrong just because it's wrong. There's no evidence of a giant hole in Antarctica or that Nazis went there after World War II. This narrative is a collection of disparate but real things connected via imagination. The Nazis did go to Antarctica, but only in 1938 to 1939 in an expedition. Were the Nazis working on advanced, for the time, technology? Yes. There is a long list of odd, experimental, and very saucer-like aircraft. After the war, a bunch of Nazis were able to escape, many to Brazil, Chile, and Argentina. There was even a claim published in 1945 by a man named Ladislas Szabo, who said the U-boat U-530 that showed up in Argentina 2 months after the end of the war in Europe, a real event, had gone to Antarctica first and had possibly dropped off Hitler. And now let's go back to the land beyond the poles quote. I actually don't doubt that one because there are similar quotes along these lines. Take the 1948 documentary of Operation High Jump called Secret Land.
The greatest exploration flight of all history has ended in success. The flight beyond the South Pole. The flight beyond imagination.
And later in an interview in 1954 by Byrd himself.
Is there any unexplored land left on this earth that might appeal to adventurous young Americans?
Yes, there is. And not up around the North Pole, because it's getting crowded up there now, because they find out it's really usable, not only to live in, but militarily. But strangely enough, there's left in the world today an area as big as the United States that's never been seen by a human being. And that's beyond the pole, on the other side of the South Pole, from Middle America. And I think it's quite astonishing that there should be an area as big as that unexplored.
This is a tremendous
So
challenge.
there's a lot of adventure left down at the bottom of the world.
Byrd is talking about the land beyond the pole, but we need to look at it from his point of view. We also need to look at a map. Here's the South Pole. During Operation High Jump, Byrd was stationed here at Little America, so the land beyond the pole is just the other side of the geographic South Pole. Antarctica is a massive continent that even today has many unexplored areas if you don't count plane and satellite footage. Restricted airspace, plus no one is freely allowed to explore, equals something is hidden. You can fly over it, there's nothing that says it's illegal to do so, and you can visit anytime you like. Find me a law that says otherwise. The closest you're going to get is the Antarctic Treaty, Article 7, Paragraph 5. Each contracting party shall, at the time when the present treaty enters into force for it, inform the other contracting parties, and thereafter shall give them notice in advance of a. all expeditions to and within Antarctica on the part of its ships or nationals, and all expeditions to Antarctica organized in or proceeding from its territory. I'm no lawyer, but it sounds pretty clear to me. If you're a signatory of the treaty, just let the other signatories know that some of your own citizens are going to Antarctica. To keep the peace, have the people register with the government before heading to Antarctica to avoid any misunderstandings or degradation of the natural environment. I mean, we still want to protect the penguins, right? That's my basic understanding of this part of the treaty. And it's only 11 pages. It's not hard to read. Where am I going with all this? Despite there being nothing of substance at its core, the Hollow Earth, Antarctic no-fly zone, Admiral Byrd's secret diary, meeting with the Master, and a Shining City myth still persists. Shows like Ancient Aliens keep bringing it up.
This story is said to come from his diaries, not his published account of the trip.
In his diary, this account from Admiral Byrd's diary is particularly significant.
And it's regurgitated elsewhere, like Secure Team 10 did, the biggest UFO-related channel.
Now, if you remember, we've spoken about Admiral Richard Byrd in the past when we were speaking about how he took a Navy fleet down to Antarctica and was attacked by these flying saucers that burst out of the ocean and literally wiped out half of his fleet. So basically, through one of Mr. Byrd's diaries, it was found that he had written about a gaping hole over the North Pole and that he had actually entered inner Earth. In his diary, along with other witnesses, he tells of entering this hollow interior of the Earth, traveling 1,700 miles over mountains, lakes, vegetation, animal life, and that he saw, quote, monstrous animals resembling the mammoth of antiquity moving through the underbrush, and that he eventually found cities with a thriving civilization. But an interesting thing to note, as you're seeing in these images here, is that the United States government does not allow planes to fly over the poles.
Literally wiped out half of his fleet. No, that didn't happen. But that was posted 7 years ago. Maybe he's changed his mind since then. After Byrd passes in 1957, we head into the 60s and just go. This narrative really spreads out. It's found in obscure magazines and books like the ones I mentioned before. Today, there's at least half a dozen narratives. Agartha, a hidden subterranean civilization inside the Earth, inhabited by advanced beings who possess superior technology and wisdom. Other ancient/mythological civilizations, some proponents believe that the Hollow Earth is home to the Atlanteans and or Lemurians and or the lost tribe of Israel. Nazi Hollow Earth, Hitler had secret expeditions conducted to discover entrances into the Hollow Earth and established a secret base inside. Hollow Earth as the home or base of extraterrestrials. Maybe they were just cruising by in their spaceships. They saw Earth, they saw us on the surface and decided to park their spacecraft and build bases on the inside of the planet from which, they could use to come out and study us. Hollow Earth as an alternate dimension or parallel universe. This idea suggests that the Hollow Earth is its own separate dimension that coexists with ours. There's even a concave Hollow Earth. You and I are somewhere in here. I mean, maybe. I bet that's why there are all those observatories, so countries can spy on each other. According to OurHollowEarth.com, it is a terrestrial paradise where the original Garden of Eden is located today. where the lost tribes of Israel live, where the political kingdom of God is located, where the lost Viking colonies of Greenland migrated to, where vanquished Germans escaped to after World War II, where flying saucers come from, where people live to be hundreds of years old in perfect health, where peace and prosperity exists for everyone, where a real-life Jurassic Park exists with exotic animals, where heaven is located, which you can become a citizen of if you so choose. By becoming a citizen of the virtual City of Light, you will commit on your personal honor to abide by the laws of the virtual City of Light, pay a voluntary income tax to the virtual City of Light on 10% of your gross salaried income, and 10% on the net of your business income.
Hard pass!
It's a lot to take in, I know. Just let it soak, let it marinate. But that's it for now. There's a lot more to the Hollow Earth story, so maybe there will be a part 3 sometime in the future. But in my next video, I will be covering Bob Lazar, because I think I found an angle no one has covered yet, at least to my knowledge. But right now, I'm clocking out. Thanks for watching. Peace.